So Demon Souls is fresh on my mind at the moment. I just finished my last stream for my first ever playthrough. Obviously, I'm still going to be doing different builds for like PvP and of course Black World tendency stuff, and like preparing to possibly do like a soul level 1 run. You know, I still have no idea what I'm going to do in terms of like PvE, but I definitely have like a bunch of PvP stuff planned for it. So I wanted to make this video like right after that because I wanted to have everything kind of fresh on my mind for like a review. I don't really like writing scripts or anything like that. I'm not good at any of that. So I'm just gonna basically talk about what I thought of the game. So one of the biggest questions, of course, that people asked me, like, is it worth $70? And I guess, you know, that's assuming you already have a PS5. And let me just say, if you have a PS5 already, yeah, it's gonna be worth $70 for sure, especially if you haven't played the game. This is coming off of somebody who never played the original Demon Souls, in fact, never really watched any gameplay at all, because I was always very hopeful that this game was gonna come out at some point. You know, I've always talked about like a remaster or remake coming out, even from like years back, hoping that it might happen, and luckily it freaking did. So for me, it was like a no-brainer that this was gonna be, I pretty much just bought the PS5 because, well, you know, half of it being my job, and then the other half me really wanted to play Demon Souls. So absolutely, it is worth $70, but people might not see it that way if you have played the original and if you've played the shit out of the original especially. Because at the end of the day, it is a remake. You know, you see one area that you saw in the original and it's the same area except incredibly detailed and amazing looking, and probably runs a lot smoother. And there are new things, like some of the animations are definitely new, and just the way it plays, I'm sure, is a lot grittier, a lot funner to play. There's definitely a lot of things like the heavy weapons and stuff when I was playing felt like they had some weight to them, especially when you smack them down and hear the big thump of the iron. The work that they did for this remake is absolutely incredible. I think the sound design is some of the best that I've ever heard in a video game. And really the only evidence that you need for that is to watch the Storm Ruler fight. That boss fight when I was playing it, and the reverberation of like the bass in your ears, it's incredibly epic. Easily one of my favorite fights in the whole game, even though it's kind of gimmicky. And you do have a few like that are sort of gimmicky. I feel like this probably had some of the most gimmicky fights, because it was the OG and it was the original game. It's not like they're gonna rebrand and change some boss fights completely just because they were a little bit outdated, and absolutely some of them do feel outdated. And I don't really want to go into too many spoilers, especially, I mean, for sure I'm not going to go into like story spoilers or anything like that, but I will say that the story felt simple enough that you didn't have to read, you know, 500 different item descriptions to kind of understand what happens and what's going down. It's a lot less convoluted than something like Dark Souls 3 for sure. And then you could yourself go the extra mile and read descriptions for different items if you want to know very specific character lore and stuff like that. You could definitely still do that, obviously. But we were talking about, you know, is it worth the money? I feel like if you have a PS5, absolutely, especially if you haven't played the game. I think that if you have played the original, you shouldn't really expect anything mind-blowing. You shouldn't expect crazy changed paths or boss fights or anything like that. Nothing like crazy secret, at least not that we found out yet. In case you guys have been maybe keeping up with some of the things that have been going down, there has been a secret door found, and everybody's really talking about it. Vadi made a video on it, you know, like Distortion made a video on it. There's the secret door, and nobody as of yet has found a way to get inside of it. People have gotten around it, people have gotten on top of it. There's literally an invisible wall where you cannot go anywhere except through the door, and there is an item in there. Now, there's a lot of speculation what that item might be. It could be just a little Easter egg thing, you know, something fun. It could be possibly the entrance to a DLC, you know, a DLC item for the 6th Archstone. Maybe. At the moment, obviously, we have no idea. Everybody has their speculations, but nobody knows for sure except Bluepoint, unless they forgot to code that door to open. That would suck. That should be your expectations for the remake if you have played it. And then you have even more so, like, should you buy a PS5 just to play Demon Souls? I guess that's really more up to you, you know. Do you have the money for it? You know, are you financially stable to do so? If you do, then go for it, you know. Do what you want to do, have some fun, treat yourself, buy a new console. Why not? But if this is like your last $600 and you don't know if you're gonna have money to eat, I'd probably wait, honestly. You could wait. The game is absolutely fantastic and I loved it, but it's not a crazy long experience, especially for somebody like me and maybe a lot of you guys as well that have been playing Souls at this point for many years and have experienced like incredibly difficult things like the Ascended mods and stuff like that, and some of the mods that I've played. Going into this game, it was pretty damn easy. It's not like I didn't die or anything, you know, there's always going to be deaths in inexperienced places, there's always annoying places in every Souls game, and this one does not disappoint with some of its annoying areas, like those goddamn skeletons. But overall, when it came to like making builds, the builds are pretty simple to make, at least, you know, like a pretty strong build. The build that I had was pretty average. It was like a little bit of strength, you know, sort of quality with a little bit of magic, and it was kind of just decimating most things. And it was like an average weapon, you know, I was using the Knight Sword by the end of it. But again, that's more along the lines of this is a remake. They're not going to significantly change up the way the entire weapon balancing system works. That's not their job. Their job is to recreate, you know, the locations, the areas, the bosses, and new graphics and stuff. And even though it does feel like Dark Souls when you play it, it's not really on the same engine, and I don't know if I like it more. I probably wouldn't say at the moment I like this engine more than like the, you know, From Software engine. It just, even though it has, like I said, it has like a punch to it whenever you hit things and you backstab things, there's like some crunch there, you know? I don't necessarily think I like it more than like just Old Faithful. That's why I'm kind of curious to see what type of engine we're gonna get for Elden Ring. Are they just gonna stick to the same old FromSoft engine that they've been using since Demon Souls? I wonder, man. So how long did the game take me to beat? Well, I pretty much was very thorough with my first playthrough. I did do it with the whole white world tendency stuff, and all the whole, you know, black and white world tendency stuff is pretty convoluted. So if you you know, have any questions, I feel like it would be easier to Google things and kind of see the differences for yourself. Basically, the cliff notes is there's different events that happen, different NPCs, depending on if you're in white world tendency or black world tendency. At this point, I obviously haven't really completed the playthrough on YouTube, but I shouldn't really have too much more. And it took me about 20 hours. And that was me being pretty thorough, exploring as much as I could, not going past places where I just got annihilated, going back and like getting every single NPC and doing every single white world tendency event that I could, and not necessarily struggling on really any boss. I think the boss that took me the longest was maybe 30 minutes. I think that's the longest a boss took me, maybe. And it was mostly like the run backs that sometimes can be a little long because the archstones and like the way the, you know, this game's bonfires work is pretty different. You get like 2 per area, you know, you get one in the beginning and then you kill the boss and you get one inside the boss room. But it's understandable because the game is not like gigantic, you know, it's not a huge game where you need 3 different bonfires for one area like you see in Dark Souls 3. Definitely some people might take longer. I know that some people took multiple hours on bosses. I know that some people were saying the game is too hard. And, you know, at least if you have some experience with the Souls games, it's probably not going to be too difficult for you. But when it comes to how much fun it was special for me, man. It felt like just a straight up special game. I've never played it. So going into it with these newer graphics, and like I said, man, the game is just beautiful. It's hard to find a better looking game, at least that I've personally played. The Last of Us 2 looked pretty goddamn amazing. The world in that looked really, really good. I feel like that's the closest comparison that I can think of. And I would even go as far as to say that Demon Souls had a lot more detail. And obviously I think it's, well, it's the PS5's power, you know, it's a new, way more powerful console. And if this is what the games in the beginning look like, man, I cannot wait to see what comes out in a year or two. It's going to be pretty incredible once that new Unreal Engine drops and everybody's making games on that. While I haven't seen really any gameplay from like the new Spider-Man or some of the other PS5 games, I would go as far as to say this is probably going to be the best looking PS5 game from release. It might be a little bit hard to tell when watching videos, especially like my videos. And first of all, I just want to apologize for the videos because for some reason, like my recordings are kind of like fucked up and I don't really know a way to fix them. You might have noticed that a couple times the game looks like it's dropping frames, or maybe it's an unsteady 60 FPS, or maybe the game looks 30 FPS except for some areas. That is not the case at all when I'm playing it. When I'm playing it, it is 100% smooth 60 FPS. Very, very rarely does it ever drop, except if you're in Latria. There are quite a few frame drops there. It's probably the most laggy area. But other than that, I don't know what's up with the recordings, man. I have the 4K capture card. I have the old HD60S. I've never had issues with any of them. So it's sort of odd to see this now. I feel like it's something with the PS5 being pretty powerful. I don't know, man. So I apologize for that. I know a lot of people have been asking if I've been playing on like the whole cinematic versus performance mode. And I was playing on, of course, performance mode. I don't have a 4K TV, so there's really no reason for me to do the 4K cinematic mode. But even in 1080p, you know, it felt like playing a game on basically jacked up ultra graphics. It's really hard to imagine that game looking any better, unless you know, count 4K. Now, when it comes to the weapons, I feel like I always find a way to use the most boring stuff. Just kind of like the old reliables, you know, because I always think eventually I'm going to come back and try to use a lot of different things. For starters, I'm going to use stuff that I started leveling up pretty early. Like I used Curved Sword, I used a Falchion, I used a Knight Sword. And overall, those are pretty basic. And I'm pretty sure the movesets and stuff are pretty much the exact same as the original. There's not going to be anything changed there. Which can be a little bit, you know, boring to some people, especially if you play the OG. You're kind of going to see the same type of R1 moveset, the same R2 attacks. Obviously, moving forward in this series, we got weapon arts, which were a fantastic addition that were really fun. And you do miss that variety in this game, going backwards, even though you have the incredible graphics, yeah, easily the best looking Souls game ever. But you do miss out on a little bit of that variety. It was cool to see like all the different really crazy animations for like backstabs and riposts. That was super fun. I love the updated. I'm so glad they actually made it omnidirectional when it came to the rolling, because if they kept the 4-direction rolling, it would be all for naught. The graphics, the gameplay, all that for nothing if you have kind of like the shitty rolling. So I'm super glad they made that decision. I apologize that there's not more than I can compare to the original in saying, you know, what are things that got updated and are better or worse, because I haven't played the original yet. And I do intend to. I actually want to do a playthrough and go backwards and see how that is. Have it downloaded on PC with the emulator, which is 60 FPS and everything. So one of these days, for sure, I will end up doing that. But the weapons overall are pretty normal. Magic was very freaking fun to use. And I only really used one spell, and there's a nice little variety, not a lot. A little variety of spells, and the way the spells look, and when you hit somebody with magic and they just light up on fire or in blue flames, it's so freaking cool. And it only adds to it with the, you know, sound design that they did for this game, having them scream the way they scream. It's really oddly realistic. Now, this wasn't going to be very long, but I'll end it with PvP and kind of giving you guys my opinion on the PvP. I talked a little bit about it in my invasion video that I made. If you guys want to watch that, feel free to do so. It's in the description. I'll link it down there, as long as I remember. But does the PvP have legs to stand on? You know, will it have a long life cycle? Will invasions be fun? And will I be playing this forever like I did for Dark Souls 3? Probably not. I really don't think it does. I think their job was to remake the game's graphics, you know, kind of updated for modern systems, update the game itself, not really to rebalance the way weapons work and invasions work and builds work in PvP. So everything that was in the OG that I've heard of, you know, crazy stun locks, incredibly overpowered builds and weapons, those are still in there. There's some that I really wish they would have changed, like the Storm Ruler literally hitting people 10 feet backwards with every single R1 attack and R2 attack. That's pretty freaking stupid. That shouldn't be the case at all. So for that fact alone, unless they do some updating to the whole PvP system, it definitely does not have any type of longevity more than like 2 or 3 months. Once people kind of get every single really overpowered build and kind of jump into some of the shittier weapons, I did some invasions with like a soul level 30 build with like a +4 weapon that was just basically like 5 hitting people. You can just R1 spam and completely annihilate them, and it does get boring. I got bored after like 5 or 6 hours of doing it. And then I did decide to go into New Game Plus on my main character. I did some invasions with like a regular straight sword that I had, the Knight Sword, and the weapon was so bad. I was just getting destroyed by some of the hosts, getting like straight up 4-shot by people. So there is a big difference in some of the builds and weapons in this game for PvP and invasions. Incredibly imbalanced, but fun for now, in my opinion. I still think it's fun. It's fun to invade in a new game, have this new experience, and I look forward to doing a lot more of it until I get sick of it, probably in 2 or 3 months. But that's really my fresh thoughts on the game, man. I thought it was a special experience. I thought the game was freaking fantastic. The update, the graphics, the sound design, you know, the work Blue Point did is freaking amazing. It sucks that they didn't change more things and maybe add a few new things, but knowing the community, I know how they would react, man. But it's just, it's every remake. It's not even just the Souls community, it's every remake. There's always going to be people complaining about just anything. If they add too much, if they add too little, they change an enemy, they make them look better. People like the original, oh, it's just, it must be a nightmare. So I'll end it with, the game was incredibly fun to play. The freaking sound design is some of the best I've ever heard. And I look forward to playing more and making more videos for you guys on the game. If you have any questions, like specific things that I maybe forgot about in this video, feel free to leave that in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Maybe consider dropping a like. Thank you so much if you do so. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.